Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's special webinar. My name is Ellen Wright, and I am a program associate with the U.S. Heartland China Association. Today, we will hear from delegates who recently traveled to China to participate in the 2024 U.S. China Agriculture Roundtable. For those unfamiliar with our organization, USHCA is a 501c3 nonprofit committed to building bridges between the Heartland region of the US and the People's Republic of China. Our website is www.usheartlandchina.org if you would like to learn more. I encourage you to use the Q&A feature to submit any questions you have. We'll do our best to address as many of them as possible later in the program. At the end of the session, we'll be sending out a short 2-minute survey. We'd greatly appreciate your feedback as it helps us to continue to improve our future programs. We will have a short overview of the Ag Roundtable, as well as the 2 delegations that were organized to attend before hearing directly from the delegates, as well as the advisors from the trip, and then finishing with a Q&A session. Now let's get started. I will hand things off to our moderator for this evening, USHCA Executive Director, Min Fan. Min?
Thank you, Ellen, for organizing this event. As I shared with our speakers, and we're really excited to see them again. Ellen, I think we have some slides to give people a better perspective on Agriculture Roundtable. So first launched in 2021 during the pandemic. The annual U.S. China Agriculture Roundtable has grown to be one of the broadest based U.S. China dialogue format. Typically it has 3 dialogues, and opening ceremony and trade and business dialogue, which took place in Shandong and actually in Jinan. And then there's an Ag Education Dialogue took place at China Agriculture University, followed by a think tank dialogue hosted by Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. To attend those dialogues, we organized 2 delegations, the Ag and Food Business Delegation and the Ag Education Delegation. And over a period of roughly 10 days, some of them longer, they traveled. I think, Ellen, we have some pictures maybe. They travel around your cities and provinces. Again, our business group were in Shanghai and Jinan, Beijing, and the education group went on to visit more places. And throughout the whole trip, I think, again, some people have visited China before many times, others for the first time. Overall, I don't know, Ellen, we have a picture, a collage of some sort, and they had a lot of really interesting interactions, reconnect with their friends and partners, but learned a lot on this trip. So I'm really excited to actually have the delegates and then the advisors who help us make this possible to share with you the insights perspective. So without further ado, I'm going to turn to our panelists who have find time in their busy schedule. And Ellen, I think we can stop sharing. I'm going to first, the support of partners. The trip was actually supported by not only the foundation that support our organization in general, but a lot of major players from both US and China to help create a lot of unique visits and experiences. So with that, now I'm going to turn to our panelists. And this is the first 3 delegates, and then we'll turn to 2 other advisors. And actually, Ellen, if we turn down the slide, I'm going to invite Linda, who is the CEO, the president, and the board member of Genactive, as well as a board member of U.S. Heartland China Association. So Linda, I'm asking everybody to do a brief introduction themselves. And so if you don't mind, would you mind kicking off and sharing about your role and what interests you about the trip?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I actually grown up in China in agriculture. My biggest dream and the only dream, almost like many other young children grown up in rural China, is to run away from agriculture. But today, I am the CEO of an agriculture technology company, and being part of a USHCA board and has participated from the first U.S. China Ag Roundtable as a audience, like many of you online today, checking out what USHCA is about, checking out what this roundtable is about. I got really excited in 2020. So I joined the board and participated in all three, all the way till, for the first time, we bring this Ag Roundtable in ground in China per the invitation by our Chinese partner, because they were really excited by the third roundtable last year when we were able to bring Chinese guests to the US and make the roundtable in person for the first time. So it has been a journey for me. I felt like with USHCA and with the roundtable. Really quick about my company, Genactive, we work in the very beginning part of the ag food value chain, which is technology for seeds. We do genetic modification of the seeds, so the crop grow out of the seeds can be insect resistant or drought resistant, meaning they can utilize water more efficient, or it will help the plant have a better uptake of nutrients like nitrogen. So it is helping improve the yield in an environmentally sustainable way. We have a big panel today. I will stop here.
Thank you, Linda. We have actually such an accomplished panel. The introduction can take a long time. Especially, I'm going to turn to Mark, who has a very unique multinational agriculture background. So maybe Mark, brief introduction, and maybe we'll share reflection, takeaway from the trip later. Mark? You are muted, Mark. Let's see.
That's
there you go.
okay. Yeah, you said multinational. I've traveled to 40 countries. And when I go to a country, I tend not to go to the capital. I tend to go to agricultural areas. My contacts with China started 20 years ago when, as at an Asian conference on precision agriculture, I was asked by an eminent Chinese professor to come to China to see and give my opinion on where they were and how they were evolving into high-tech agriculture. And ever since that time, I went to China 2-3 times a year, visiting universities, research centers, going on the ground on farms, etc. So it's been, it was very revealing how China is working very hard to feed 1.4 billion people through whatever legal means they can do. It's a very complex situation, and I consider it as one of the biggest achievements in human history, what China has done the 20-30 last years in avoiding serious disruptions in the agriculture and food chain. That all those trips were interrupted by COVID. So I was very interested in going back to China after COVID, and I took the advantage of this trip. And what I learned, what I saw was that China did not stop evolving and continuing their technological progress during COVID. And so it's very clear that they're not there yet, but they sure have become world leaders in agricultural technology. We have to recognize that.
Well, thank you, Mark. Again, we learned so much from you on the trip. I still remember you told us about the historic significance of many locations. So thank you for bringing that depth of knowledge to our whole delegation. Next, I would like to invite our dear friend Kate and to introduce herself. Kate?
Thank you, Min. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Sullivan. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Columbus Chinese Chamber of Commerce. If you're wondering which Columbus, it would be Columbus, Ohio. I grew up sandwiched between soybean fields, and I thought that I would never have any type of role with farming. Once I left my hometown, I ended up going to school in New York, and I went to school in China. And anyway, I've circled back to running the Chamber of Commerce, and I have found myself in the middle of agriculture. I was invited on to be a part of this delegation, and I'll share my remarks later, but I run the nonprofit chamber, and so we do a lot of work with USHCA, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. And next, I'm going to invite Wendell, our strategic advisor in many ways, actually being instrumental in launching the Agriculture Roundtable way back in 2021, special around agriculture education and the think tank dialogue. Dr. Wendell Zhang, please share a quick introduction.
Thank you, Min. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Wendell Zhang, assistant professor at Cornell University Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management. Kate, I went to Ohio State, so go Bucks. And before Cornell, I worked at Iowa State, and I'm happy and proud to be part of the USHCA efforts to help launch and help with the U.S. China Agricultural Roundtable since its start. And I'm actually happy this year because this dialogue went to my home province. I grew up in Shandong province, and I'm happy to say that my hometown county, Xi'an, is actually the #1 vegetable production county in China. I will share more, but really happy to be part of the panel, and great to see everyone.
Great. Thank you, Wendell. And finally, I'm going to go to Helen Lee, who's been our key partner that supported the delegation to China. So Helen, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And it's such a pleasure to join this agriculture project with U.S. China Heartland China Association 4 years ago during pandemic. I was growing up in Beijing, a city girl, and never worked with agriculture as an international business transaction and economic developer. I'm based in California, so all I've been working with is in tech industry. And even California is just big agriculture products states, but in San Francisco, we more focus on technology, but I'm very happy to join this project and be an advisor. And I learned a lot from 4 years from this project. I will share more about opportunities in agriculture and food industries between US and China. Thank you.
Thank you. Knowing all of you, I know you have been extremely brief in your introduction. You're all very highly accomplished. But I'm going to go back to the order we started with each panel. Again, starting with Linda, you are a global ag company, tech company executive. You've traveled to China many times. What were some of the big aha surprise you took from this trip to China?
Yeah, so really two things. I've been going back to China on average once a year, if not more, before the pandemic. And then this trip in June was my first time visit in 5 years. My last trip was July 2019, then the pandemic happened. As part of the organizing team, we know this is going to be logistics, going to be a challenge. I would just say, first off, it was much more harder than I anticipated, than what I would like to see. Leave aside the politicals, right? What is around, it's just so difficult to get air tickets to go to China. And so kudos to Ming, Helen, Alan, and everyone who is helping to organize, actually get people over. I felt like going over was unnecessary, difficult this time. Again, it is factors out of our control. However, when I went over there after jump all the hoops, I felt it's all worth it. Because in the 5 years, actually China did not stop. To Mark's point, China never stopped. China did not stop in this last 5 years. even in my, 22 years living in the United States after coming over from China as a student, every time I went back, it's always the same feeling. Oh my gosh, things have changed. There's so much growth. This time it could be because it has been 5 years, so it's a bit longer. It could be the sector, agriculture we're in, it's just moving forward at an even faster speed than anything else in China. So I observed how much more mechanization China agriculture has gone through. I don't see little girls who was pulling weeds with hands or pick up the leftover weeds in the field after harvest. That was my job. That was why I wanted to run away from agriculture. I do not want to work in summer break in the fields. I don't see it. I see machines. There is one field, Wendong already mentioned, vegetables. I felt China, some of the places we visited is world class, but China is also very pragmatic. Mark, you helped to highlight for us, right? There are different generations of greenhouses sitting by each other. World class, the newest greenhouse technology, what we usually see in Europe, particularly in Netherlands, is great, but it costs a lot of energy. The Chinese have put the different generations side by side. Some may not look as glamorous, but they are more energy efficient. So those are the things, for me, I'm positively shocked just how much change, how much progress China has made in the last 5 years. I have not gone back. If we have time later, I'm happy to come back to the technology side. I would say one biggest change in China in terms of technology adaptation is genetic modification. China resisted to have GMO seeds technology for 20 years. About 2 years ago, finally, it is doing pilot. It is start to do approval. That is a great thing for global agriculture, because for the seeds business globally, the value has plateaued in the last 5 to 10 years. Everyone is counting on China to lift the market by about 30%. And I was glad going back, the 3 words, GMO, was never easy to talk about. It is not something make everyone comfortable, but I see a huge change of attitude from policy perspective, from industry practitioner perspective. I know the biggest challenge like GMO for any other country will be in public acceptance, but I see that is a major change China is making, and in a positive way.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Mark, we hear a lot from the US. Actually, this is called the China Week on the Hill, right? In Congress, a lot of bills, talking about the Chinese stealing our technology. We're trying to get ahead. You have the view from the global connections you have. Where do you think China actually surprisingly is leading? Well, we might want to copy them from your visit. Well, what are the things that you walked away from the trip, in addition to your share, that were really surprising?
Agriculture is not the driving force of advanced technology in China. That belongs more to the military and the information security systems. But when it comes to engineering applications of advanced technologies, and I think China has done a marvelous job in adapting existing technologies for agriculture. And that has to do with optical sensors, that has to do with information networks, that has to do with right-sized mechanizations. So not the big John Deere, 30 meters John Deeres, but more adapted to China. It took them a bit longer to enter the area of genetic engineering, because they felt that they had other priorities and they had to prepare the manpower to do it. So they didn't have the people. There were a lot of Chinese in American and European universities studying biotechnologies, but they didn't have them in China. So as a result, they took advantage in the first 20 years of this century to play the international markets to import whatever they needed. Meanwhile, they were preparing their ground infrastructure and people infrastructure to enter the area of biotechnology. And I think I can confirm what Linda says. They are now ready to take on that market head on. They had leadership in certain seed markets. For example, vegetable seeds, they were leaders because China produces 40% of all the vegetables in the world. They were world dominant in the area of watermelons. Believe it or not, the watermelons we eat here in the US are based on Chinese seeds. But they're ready to go now into other areas and to the big crops as well. When it comes to information technology, it depends. So some areas we're still ahead, some areas Europe is ahead, and some areas China has taken leadership. For example, they're leaders in drones, undeniably so. Europe is still ahead in the area of robotization for agriculture. When it comes to big, huge machines, the US and Brazil are the leaders. But China is very cleverly using all the tools they have to right-size the solution to what they need. And so, for example, they're coming up with very clever solutions for water management. And fish farming is another example where they've done major breakthroughs and are probably leaders now. When it comes to integrated agricultural networks based on 5G wireless transmissions, they're as good as anybody else. So let the best win and we'll all take advantage of it. But major progress, not interrupted by COVID. And then the last point I would like to stress is that we may think that the West is closer to the consumer with companies like Nestle, companies like Unilever, some American companies. China has made tremendous progress in going downstream towards the consumer. And one example of that is COFCO. The product range and the presentation and the quality of consumer-oriented food products in China right now, at least in the big coastal city, is at par with what we can get in New York, with what we can get on the West Coast, with what we can get in Paris. So it is very clear that China works on the ground in mechanization, but also develops the most advanced consumer-oriented food products available. So they're doing it all. They're not prioritizing. They're doing it all at the same time.
Well, thank you for that point. Actually leads to Kate's very well, because Kate have members who are not only just ag, right? They're in the food business. Ohio is the home of Procter & Gamble, and again, huge conglomerates that in different brands. So, Kate, what are the things most surprising to you, and you thought that's got to be something I got to share with my members, with the food and ag companies I work with?
Thank you so much. Yes, so I went to school in Tianjin, which is east of Beijing. And going back post-COVID, it was incredible to see how fast-moving China is. My first gut reaction is, how can those of us in the United States learn from how quickly the Chinese move and make changes? They're so agile. In regards to agriculture, I didn't see, I mean, actually, I saw exactly the same thing. Some of the technology was completely astounding. Those of you that were on the trip, I'm sure you guys remember the tomatoes that were in the biotech field. So I came back with this resounding feeling of how much we really should be working together and how much opportunity there is from both sides. It was very apparent to me that post-COVID, I think there's a big opportunity for Americans to be going to China to see how things are going. Your firsthand experience is way more powerful than anything I can personally share with you, whether it's as a student or now as a professional. You know, the other thing that was surprising, that I think because I had been stateside for the last 4 years, was how open and how willing every manufacturer we visited, every farm, COFCO, they were so welcoming. Everyone was so willing to exchange ideas and be solution-based. Our trip really wasn't focused on any political avenues at all. Everyone was willing to hear, what's your background? Where are your struggles? Here's what I'm good at. What are you good at? And everyone was really trying to be very progressive. And so I think that was my biggest takeaway, is we're meeting with people who are looking to be progressive. And I thank USHCA and the team for working so hard to put together such an amazing agenda for all of us. I thought it was incredibly well-rounded, from meetings at COFCO to seeing a dairy farm or a cattle farm? You know, that type of access is really not available to the common person. And so the relationship that USHCA has in order to get us in front of some of these people, in my opinion and in my experience, is hard to beat. And so I wanted to say thank you to USHCA and their team. I know the advisors, I can't imagine how hard you worked. I host my own events and I prefer attending other events. So, so as far as the agricultural, I want to share one thing that was truly outstanding from my side. We visited the largest soybean importer of US soybeans. And for me, that was full circle, right? Growing up in between soybean fields. And so you hear all types of different things about soybean export from the United States. Well, then here we are walking into the largest soybean importer. And so, you know, from the field to the importer, where they will be manufactured and produced or manufactured into many different products, was something I never thought I would ever have as an experience. As something I would be able to go home and offer the membership of contacts and just different ways to access China. There is more to the U.S. China relationship than just politics. We actually do a great deal of agricultural business with each other. And so I think this is an avenue we all can flex during this time and see who we can be partners with, because I think all of the delegates will agree that all of our meetings were incredibly fruitful and incredibly positive. So
great. Thank you, Kate. Now I'm going to turn to Wendong. And so I'm sure you feel good that your hometown, Shandong, did getting all the glowing remarks. And again, they rolled out the red carpet for us. We wish we had more time in Shandong. They want us to stay longer too. But for you, as a researcher, you know, you're working in a lot of many fields. And what surprised you? What are the things you think you took from this trip that you want to share?
Right. So I will first will sound like a broken record compared to, but given the remarks, I think I want to echo first Kate's comments that especially if you're in the US, you have never been to China. I grew up in China. It's been 7 years since I come back this time. And China will change so much within 5, 7 years. So you really have to have the firsthand experience. Otherwise, it's sort of dangerous to make assumptions, even if you think you grew up there. I want to give some examples. Where I see most changes is actually in my hometowns and in my wife's hometown, in Shandong province and Jiangxi province, so northern and southern part, both in rural counties. I remember when I was little, that if you go to the supermarkets, you cannot buy bananas because that's the sort of the tropical, subtropical fruits in northern China. And now this time I took my daughters there, and you can see so many different kinds of mangoes that we actually ended up buying 3 different kinds of mangoes because my daughter's picky appetite. But those are some of the things that have changed dramatically. If you go to Shanghai, you see so many cars fleets are now all EVs. If you go to any places in China, you see so many people walking with pets. And so those are really rare that even 10, 15 years ago. I will share more later if we have time. I do want to mention that I do saw something that where the things that surprise me are where I find most interesting is we tour not only the farms but also the agribusiness, the processing plants, which is both impressive. The corn processing plants that turn the corn-based products into potentially the degradable materials. I think those are really impressive, and that shows the strength of the Chinese economy. But also, it's a little concerning because if you watch the really big factory, there's only 3 workers watching the machines doing the work, and so I'm a little concerned about the rural employment. So because there's still so many people in rural China. I also, as Min mentioned, I just got back from Germany. I actually had a chance to coincide with a trip from Zhejiang University, one of the top university in China, but also in agricultural economics. And so they had a delegation of 20 graduate and undergraduate students going to Germany for a 10-day visit. So we actually toured many of the agricultural business and farms in Germany with them. One of the concerning things that I find is if you look at a lot of the students, especially undergraduates in top Chinese agricultural universities, most of them don't grow up in rural China at all. They're from the city. They have very little knowledge of agriculture and often little interest. So I think that in terms of communication, where if you're looking at the agribusiness students in Iowa State, I used to teach, they typically grew up on a farm. That if you're the U.S. students and talking with your peers in China, you may not be able to assume whatever you know about the agricultural production knowledge they actually know. So that's one of some of the interesting takeaways I had.
Great, thank you, Wendong. So now I'm turn to Helen. Helen, you have host delegation, governors, mayors, senators, and this was a very different crowd for you. How was it for you to step your foot onto a dairy farm? What are the big takeaway for you to share with the American audience?
Thank you. My first time went to a cattle farm, first time a dairy farm, and also first time went to the soybean field, also with Soybean Association, what they have been working, knowing they have been working with China over 35 years, bring all the technology to China to help China to grow in the field. I was so touched. Also, it's my first time also to work with American farmers. People like H and Kate and others, they are on the ground from the US, bring them to China, meet Chinese people. I remember in Shandong, the last day, we were so rushed to get a car. We drove a few hours to see the cattle farm, dairy farm. One of our delegates, two of them, was so three, Susan, H, and Kathy were so happy with what they have been talking with Chinese farmers, Chinese dairy farm owners. They see all the opportunities when they try their yogurt. I remember they kept eating that, so delicious. So we see that's not the people, and people need to talk with, not only from the top, not from the national level, state level, the people from the industry, from the ground. We need to meet each other, and we need to work together to build the exchange, not only in technology, not only in business, and also to build long-term friendship.
Thank you. I wish we had more time, but we're going to end sharp in 25 minutes because everyone got a busy schedule. I'm going to turn back to the panel again. This time, actually, asking you, what do you see as opportunity? Whether it's technology or education, whatever your activity, what do you see as opportunity that American companies or global players really need to grasp in China, or they'll miss the boat? Linda, would you like to weigh in first? What are the opportunities for a company like yours and other peers in the US?
Yeah, sure. I already touched upon that. I actually was invited to visit one of the company in this industry where I was there. They have interest to collaborate with my company, Jinan, on the genetic modification technology for seeds. Later on, after I returned, I also received, actually people reached out via LinkedIn. We know in China, LinkedIn is banned. People actually have to make an effort to get on LinkedIn, being able to find me. So that is one, clearly the opportunity for collaboration in the innovation part is there. I would also just say it's like Wendong, right? Grown up there, know the culture well, and but still, it's just a big reminder for me. I think one part of the Chinese culture and the people, it's about hardworking and the can-do spirit. They are not wasting any opportunity, any resource they have, right? A couple of examples. We were on the high-speed train. The train is probably going 250 kilometers per hour, right? I was having my camera out because I all of a sudden saw those vegetable greenhouse. I want to take the video. I had to stop after 5 minutes because I'm afraid it's going to choke up my cell phone. It's going to use all the memories and batteries. China does not leave any land unwasted. It's every corner is being utilized. The corn deep processing plant, Wendong mentioned. Here in the US, when we talk about corn, we said the usage are three things. Actually, the first is feed, then food, then fuel, ethanol, right? In China, they figured out how can I get more out of the corn. There was one of the company we visit, there's a whole bedroom, everything is made of corn. The pillows, the sheets, and all the other things. Hardworking and a can-do spirit. When we visited some of the e-commerce facility, we saw there. It's not imaginable, even for me, someone grown up in China. I know e-commerce is huge in China. That's what made Alibaba so big, right? Jack Ma, the richest person in China. But without the trip, I could never imagine just how rudimentary their working environment is. It is a guy with a camera. Some have a bulb, like lights there. Some don't even have that. Another guy maybe have another cell phone, have another laptop. They are there. They are doing their online sales. They are tracking their order live. Behind them, not shown on the camera, but it's the hardworking people who are packaging the fruits, the vegetables. I have the same feeling as Wendong. I worried because I saw for the time we were visiting the ladies who bending down on the floor, they're packing, they're shipping. They seem to never stop. I do worry about is it difficult. too much hard work in there. But I see that the part is just, I can do this. I can be on the e-commerce platform. I want to sell. I want to see how much I sell, right? So then later on, when we get onto the high-speed train, I was not surprised. Someone is making an order on the cell phone. It's lunch. And when the train stopped, 15 minutes later, and another city, the order was delivered there. It's mind-boggling without this trip. Even I always know the Chinese is very hard work and always can-do spirit and give me opportunity. I'm going to make the most out of this. I think this is something. Even in relatively resource-rich countries like U.S., some of the country in the EU, there's something we probably can learn about.
Thank you, Linda. So, Mark, I'm going to turn to you now. If I'm a U.S. ag and food business, what are the top 3 opportunities you see, or maybe 1 or 2 in China that you think you should want to call out to the folks who will be watching this?
Whatever you're doing now, China probably has figured out a cheaper way of doing it. And you may not even have to compromise on quality. So in that sense, keeping an open mind of where you supply your technology, your basic raw materials from, and how you work downstream, keep an open mind. So don't assume that things have not changed. Things have changed, and you will discover areas where you can learn from China. I have personally been involved in patenting certain Chinese technologies for agriculture for the US market. So the good news of that is that China learns about respect for intellectual property because they have realized that they are creating themselves things that are worth protecting. And that is good news. When it comes to e-commerce, I think they're probably about 5-6 years ahead of where we are. So in terms of learning how to develop parallel or new channels of whatever you make to compress a supply chain or streamline your supply chain downstream, go and get to China. You'll be surprised. They'll be able to help you. And that applies to things that are on a truck, to fresh things that are on your table. The other thing that I've learned, and I still have to have a full, clear understanding of it. In the 1970s and 80s, when I was in Europe, Europe went through a demographic transition whereby, for example, in France, the number of dairy farmers dropped from 400,000 to 40,000. And they did it one way or another with part of social engineering, part of money, etc. But the European Union largely was successful in engineering that demographic transition. China is doing the same thing now. They have a demographic transition, not of hundreds of thousands of people, but hundreds of millions of people. And they are using the most modern technologies. What Europe could not do because the technology was available 30, 40, 50 years ago, China is doing now with new technologies. And we can learn from that. Because in the US, we will have demographic and generational transitions. And it would be disastrous if we do not prepare for that in a way that respects the individual, in a way that avoids major disruptions, and in a way that does not do it most efficiently possible by using all available technologies. So it goes beyond just stuff. It goes to the point where you're almost talking to people, the way people behave, the people work, the way people buy their clothes in China is different of what they do here. And we can learn from that.
Well, thank you, Mark, for sharing that learning perspective, right? That's why another thing we believe exchange is important because you're all professional, you are learning, and we have students who are learning a lot more, right? Going to China for the first time. So, Kate, beyond just going to China for learning, what are some of the opportunities you mentioned about the marketplace? I think I touched on e-commerce. What are the things you think that it's really important for the business members of the organization or other ag and food business in the heartland to take notice about opportunities in China?
Thank you. I think the largest opportunity, one, I really would echo the two previous delegates. But if we're looking at a different space, I think the opportunity lies within looking at your business and seeing if it is something that you can incorporate a stronger relationship with China. Going back to not necessarily business, but a people to people. I think one of the best ways to strengthen a business that involves China in some capacity is truly knowing who you're doing business with. And that's why I would double down on saying traveling to China really reinforces that. There are so many barriers that are knocked down, and that is a major business opportunity, right? Because when you can even silently to yourself say, I apologize, there's traffic. Oh, that was different than what I had anticipated, or that is different than what I had been told. That's an opportunity for you. That's an opportunity for your business. That's an opportunity for your network, right? Because then you're going and you're sharing this new mentality with other people. I think the other thing that they're open for business. It's a very simple thing. They want to work with people. They're very business driven. And so I think if that makes sense for you, there are a ton of opportunities for you in China. I was at Bank of China in May with the Canton Fair, and the same thing was echoed. They want to work with us. And so I think that the major opportunity for American businesses is to maybe reevaluate and see if this is something you want and if it benefits you. And then if you're open-minded enough to start that journey, there are a ton of people who are in this space that are willing to help you. Myself, any of the panelists, all of our networks are incredibly vast. So if there is an area of hesitation, any of us would be more than happy to help you or, have a conversation about it. So I think the opportunity is truly in the mentality, not to say learning, but even though I went to school there for 3 years, I felt like I had never been to China before in some regards. The train tickets, purchasing train tickets as a student, I could just go up and go to the window and pay cash, that's not a thing anymore, and get my ticket and go. Now there's links and QR codes and money being transferred via a cell phone. So, if you can move past all of the ways that China is very innovative and very fast moving, there's a ton of opportunity. And I think that is something that if it fits your business, I think it's worth looking into.
Great. Thank you, Kay. Wendell, in your field, what do you see as opportunities, or even beyond your field, what are the things you think that has promise for American food and agribusiness in China?
Right. Thanks, Min. And I want to mention the report we wrote a couple of years ago. And I think I want to mention maybe two areas. One is every time we think about U.S.-China agricultural trade or business, we tend to only think about soybeans. I encourage the U.S. audience to think to leverage the opportunities for increasing Chinese demand for food quality. So there's a lot of significant rise in global demand from China for consumer-oriented products. So those includes dairy products, better quality vegetables, fruits, vegetables, wine, beverage, pet foods, and all the other things. I think that U.S. has a lot of these products, especially along the coasts. But if you're looking at where China is buying from, U.S. represents a very, very, very low share, and we can do much better. And I think that's one of the area that's definitely represents a significant opportunity. Secondly, I think both U.S., China, and EU are very conscious about the carbon emission from agriculture. So we are doing research in Germany. We're also seeing a lot of investments on trying to, for example, look into how do we reduce methane emissions from dairy production using, for example, anaerobic digesters or any other machineries. Right? So I think the ag machinery companies or other startup technology companies thinking along the lines of whether you can design food additives to reduce carbon emissions from livestock production that can be useful in the US, EU, and China. And so those are I think, the two examples I see that potentially that the US can exert much better efforts, and especially now I move from the Midwest and outside the Corn Belt. I think that what's interesting that sometime when I talk with U.S. New York farmers, and when they think about trade, is they don't have the similar mentality like Iowa farmer or Illinois farmer. That in Iowa you think about China as markets, you think about trade as market. In many other places that you always think about trade potentially as competition from fruits from Peru taking your markets away. So you almost have the mentality of manufacturing workers, right? So I think, but China represents the opportunity that you can also treat this as your destination markets as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendell. So Heartland, you work with companies who are both in China and in the US, right? So feel free to address opportunity on both sides. What are the opportunity for American companies, and based on what the Chinese side want, and also what might become opportunities for Chinese companies based on what the American market may need. So yeah, feel free to share some highlights.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to echo what Wenjun just said. The industry in agriculture, definitely sustainable agriculture and the climate-related agriculture will be major discussion, cooperation between the two countries. And that's why I think the event you're organizing on November 11th between China and US will really benefit these two areas. For real business opportunities, I would like to share good news. For this trip, our delegates met 10 companies in China, including e-commerce. One of them, I just talked to them yesterday. They are in the US now. They are setting up their company in the US. They would like to meet our delegates because they want to import US dairies and beefs from US to China. And also they want to export Chinese fruit and jams, fruit jams, and pre-cooked meals to the US. They're planning to sell their products to Costco and to Walmart. They have all business plans set up. So we are helping this company to launch their business in the US to link with our members as well. And that's a big opportunity. We also have inquiries from another province, Henan, who attend our Shandong event. And they are here last week too, talking about import US products, soybeans and hays and others to China. So we see from our trip, this agriculture roundtable, after 4 years, every year we move a step ahead. And now we see the results, and we can work together. Also, the last one is November 5th to 8th is the China International Import-Export. I know me and we are working together to bring U.S. agriculture and food company to this big event. That's the biggest event in China for import. Especially we are setting up a agricultural pavilion to help U.S. company to do business with China. I think that's a big chance to move forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Actually, Kay, this might be something that Alan can share with you additional detail. Working with Helen through our partner in China, we have special rates for exhibit. Or if you are not exhibiting, you can have your product represented at the CIIE. So again, it's a major import opportunity for American companies. And thank you for mentioning that. I will also take the opportunity to put a plug in for 2 events coming up. We will be hosting a Chinese delegation from Yangtze River community at the Yangtze Mississippi Regional Dialogue on November 15th in Memphis. There are 3 topics: climate resilience, low carbon ag and ag photovoltaic, and the green transportation. If you are interested in meeting, showcasing whatever you have to offer around those topics, or just to interact with the Chinese delegates, let us know and reach out to us. Finally, the 2025 U.S. China Agricultural Roundtable has been confirmed. It will take place April 23rd to 24th in Chicago. So the Chinese delegation will be coming. Please mark your calendars, and we hope you can join us there. Finally, to close the event, parting remarks from our panel, and whether it's your hope for the next roundtable, what you think we should add to our itinerary for the Chinese visitor, because they did their best, open the door to showcase a lot of things. So again, Linda, starting from you, what do you think might be really exciting to add for the Chinese to see when they come to the Ag Roundtable, or what do you think will be really important topic? Either one of those. Any thoughts before we close the call?
Okay. Well, what we discussed across the panel, obviously there is opportunities going both ways, being it is trade, being it's investment, being it's technology collaboration. I think those are the things we need to continue to focus on. Since we will have the roundtable in the U.S. this year, I would encourage us to think about doing the same. As I'm in Missouri today. It's the show me states, right? You only believe when you see that's showcase what the U.S. has to offer to our Chinese partner, bringing them to companies, to farmers, to labs. My company would be very welcoming since we're in central Illinois. Its logistics is also very, very convenient. I would just say to close, I feel the world need more events like the U.S. China Agriculture Roundtable. I was born in China, I grown up there, but then I lived in 5 different countries on 4 continents. Everywhere you go, you feel lots of different. There are things worked very well, things we may not like, but the key is about taking the best part of each country's culture. We share, we learn. Then I think we make everyone better off. I think the U.S. China Agriculture Roundtable is a great venue to serve that purpose. And I'm glad we're doing this in the U.S. next year. As many has mentioned in the panel, the Chinese was really open, welcoming. Many of the events happened over the weekend, over a very important Chinese holiday. They still have their factory open, have their ranch open. They're still there doing the conversation, the visit. So I think if we all have that same spirit, we will make the Ag Roundtable even better next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Mark, any thoughts, ideas for the Ag Roundtable next year, and what should we show the Chinese side. Mark,
I hate to disappoint you, but I felt that China is more informed about the US than the US is about China. There have been hundreds of thousands of Chinese students that have lived here, that have studied here, that have gone back, or still have kept contacts, even if they have settled here. I'm not sure that what we can teach them is the progress we have made in the last decades in managing agriculture in a more environmentally friendly way. We're still ahead of China in the area of soil conservation. We're still ahead of China in the area of respecting wetlands. We're still ahead of China in how the social infrastructure of agriculture is very much rural based. Just a simple fact that Chinese cities are bigger than our cities makes that there is a danger in China of disconnecting the city from the village. And those areas, I think, are opportunities. So it is not hardcore engineering and technology. It is the social aspects of food, interactions, people. Who are we? Who are we as Americans, and what role does food play in our life is something that I think the Chinese deserve to get to know better. Agriculture in the US is not just engineering. It is also a big social phenomenon.
Thank you very much. I do want to respect the time. I know, Linda, you have other meetings. So if you need to drop, and feel free. Thank you very much. But I do want to, for those who can stay longer, hear their thoughts and record their wonderful reflection. Thank you, Linda. And so, well, Mark, you touch a really good point, because one thing we are really encouraged about Agriculture Roundtable is became a people exchange platform. As Helen mentioned, even for her, she learned something new. We built a new bridge between American dairy farmer and Chinese dairy farmer. And so again, there's so much richness to this relationship that we are really happy that Agriculture Roundtable is playing a bigger part. Well, many other forums might have been put on the back burner. And so now moving to Kate, we are looking forward to seeing you in Chicago next Ag Roundtable. Any suggestions or things that you think would be really cool to show the Chinese now you have experienced their open mind and warm hospitality?
So my comment on this is I wish people could see how we were treated while we were there. Their hospitality is incredibly difficult to match. Min and team, I know you guys are incredible, but you know what I'm talking about. There's just a difference between going to China and doing business there and being a guest and then coming to the United States. Unfortunately, in American culture, guest does not hold the same weight. And so I don't know that we could offer them the same thing that we were shown. But we're different, and the differences are what make the relationship, that's the cohesion, right? Is that we are different and we're coming together. So I think that, if you come to the Agricultural Roundtable, please just know that all of the delegates were shown this year an outstanding spread. I have a ton of pictures. Any of you could, or any of the delegates could show you sort of what our experience was. And, just please know that they took such great care and that they were so detail oriented. So I don't know that there's really
Well, Kate, you're making me feel nervous about how we're gonna. Again, I do think, thinking about the Ag Roundtable in St. Louis, we had musicians playing country song. They loved it, right? Again, you're right. We just need to be ourselves. I'm happy to
yeah.
report Kentucky State, Tennessee State, Tuskegee already offered to do campus tours, right, for them. So again, we could take them to see surrounding areas around Chicago or whatnot. But yeah, I agree with you. We cannot match exactly their hospitality, but we can bring forward
But I think
the
that's
same
okay.
kind of.
But I think
Yes.
that's okay. And I guess really my suggestion was for those attending to know that this isn't what you would normally hear. And so when you meet the delegates that do attend, that if there's any reservation or if there's any hesitation, that maybe that should be dropped to the side, because we were shown great care. And I think that's really not necessarily a task for USHCA, but for those that attend. I think, coming to Chicago has its own set of things that we can do to show them the great city of Chicago. But it's totally different, right? So I think the difference is okay. I don't think it's a discrepancy that anybody should be worried about. But it was really, I guess, my task was really for those attending and not necessarily you and your team.
Thank you. So Wendell, really quickly, what you think should be on the agenda for next Ag Roundtable, or might be a unique experience to provide to the Chinese delegation?
So I think for the trip to China, the tour of the farms and agribusiness are the most memorable portions. I think we should definitely showcase some of the Midwestern agriculture. I think that even though that they know about the U.S. generally, many Chinese people do, but they don't necessarily have the firsthand knowledge of the agricultural production and especially agribusiness. So I think that's important. I also want to mention to see whether in the agenda setting to not just talk about success stories, but talk about the issues that we are working to solve. For example, that although we all care about climate smart agriculture, the political constraint in the U.S. actually made the subsidy system and how these programs or the carbon credits and all the other programs set up is not necessarily the most efficient way. So there, it would be useful to think about what are some of the different things that different countries are doing to solve the common challenge.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. What we have learned so far, just bringing the people together, is both sides are still trying to understand each other's language around climate smart agriculture. How they're going about and measuring it. So there's a lot lost in translation for sure. So thank you. Finally, Helen, what would you like to see for the Ag Roundtable next year?
I would like to see a showcase event, so both sides can demonstrate their products during the 2 days roundtable. Not only divide by sectors and speakers talking, but we can let both sides to demonstrate their product. Also, we can make more matchmaking events and business. And also we can talk more about import-export policies and tax issues and logistic to support both sides company to make their business more successful in each country.
Great. Well, thank you. I can see we'll be leaning on you on that part of the program for sure. Again, at this point, thank you so much, everyone. It's wonderful to see you again, even virtually. But we are continue forward planning the next Ag Roundtable, and we'll look forward to welcoming you there and getting your support and your insights. At this point, I'm handing back to Alan. I believe this is the wrap for the program.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining us once again. Really appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody who joined the call for staying a little bit longer. And thank you so much. I hope that everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.